Greetings everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for tuning in. So I've been thinking a lot lately about the year 2013. The 2010s, not necessarily my favorite decade of music, but a decade in which I feel like the first half was significantly stronger than the second. And of the first half, 2013 is one of those years that really stands out to me. And I've been thinking about a lot of great records that came out in that particular year. So what I want to do is share with you my 10 favorite albums to come out in the year 2013. Starting off from the bottom of my list, my 10th favorite album of the year is this one right here. In the number 10 spot, I have Vertical Horizon and their album Echoes from the Underground. And to be honest with you, I completely forgot about this record until I was researching all the different albums that came out this year and trying to put together a list of albums that I could narrow my list down from. I forgot about this one, and I'm kind of glad now that I remember it, because there's some really good songs on here, like the album opener, You Never Let Me Down, which is probably a top 3 to 5 favorite Vertical Horizon track for me. I also love songs like Broken Over You, Half Light, and Instamatic. All in all, I think this is an album that has some of the band's most memorable material. Maybe not their most solid album, but still one that has some pretty good Vertical Horizon tracks. So in the number 10 spot, I'm going to go with Echoes from the Underground by Vertical Horizon. In the 9th spot, I have Fortress from Alter Bridge. This is an album that I kind of wish that maybe I had paid more attention to it when it came out back in 2013. But I'm not really sure if I would have taken to this one quite as much back then as I do now. Alter Bridge is a band that I do like. Call Me Crazy. I actually kind of prefer Creed, but Mark Tremonti is a phenomenal guitar player in whatever band he's playing in. And Alter Bridge, this is definitely one of my more favorite Alter Bridge releases. I think this is a really solid album. I really love songs like Cry of the Achilles, Addicted to Pain, which is probably a top 3 favorite Alter Bridge song for me. Bleed It Dry is awesome. Farther from the Sun, Cry River. So you got some really good stuff, especially for me, like on the front end and the back end. I think you got a lot of really strong material. The middle of the album may not be bad, but it's probably my lesser favorite tracks there, kind of in the middle. But all in all, Fortress from Alter Bridge is a pretty good album, and it's going to be my 9th favorite from 2013. In the 8th spot, I have the self-titled album from Paramore, their 4th studio album. And I completely forget that this album was released in 2013. I tend to think of it more in like 2014 or 2015, but I'm kind of surprised every time I look at the release date and it says 2013. And then I was looking closer at the release date and it was from like April of 2013, so it's like not even close to 2014. But still, I think this is a really good album. This is probably my 2nd favorite Paramore release after Riot. It's a bit long, but I think this album shows some growth from the band. Songs like Fast in My Car, Daydreaming, Ain't It Fun, Ankle Biters are amongst my favorite. Proof. I'm not really crazy about Still Into You. It's one of my lesser favorites on the album, but I don't think there's really any bad songs on here. And of course, as always, Hayley Williams sounds fantastic. But the self-titled Paramore album from 2013 is going to come in the number 8 spot for me. In the number 7 spot, I've got Ed Roland and the Sweet Tea Project, Devils and Darlings. I think this is a really good release from Ed Roland, his first with the Sweet Tea Project, which is more or less a southern rock, borderline countrified version of Collective Soul. But as is the case with Ed Roland, anytime he releases a batch of songs, there's going to be some gems to be found, because I think Ed is a really underrated songwriter and musician. Songs like Devils and Darlings, Going to Birmingham, I like quite a bit. Love Won't Bring Us Down, which is one of the album's singles, is really good as well. Just As I Am, Pile of Pearls, so some nice cuts right there. You also have Jesse Triplett singing a couple of tracks, including Forget About Your Life for a While, which feels kind of like a country song, but I really don't mind it. And of course, the partnership between Ed Roland and Jesse Triplett would then carry over into Collective Soul for their next couple of albums. So that partnership seems to start right here with Devils and Darlings. So the number 7 spot for me, Ed Roland and the Sweet Tea Project. In the number 6 spot, I've got Matthew Good and Arrows of Desire. This is Matt Good's, I believe, 6th solo album since the demise of Matthew Good Band, and this one sees Matt taking a more straightforward rock approach as opposed to his previous album. And even though this was not the album that I was introduced to, this is one that I really started to take towards when I discovered Matthew Good back in 2019 with Arrows of Desire. Probably my favorite Matthew Good song, my favorite song on the album. That was like my theme track back in 2019, and I was almost wanting to pick that for my favorite song in 2019 until I had to remind myself that this was in fact released in 13. I just happened to discover this artist in 19. So Arrows of Desire is a great song. I love that one. Via Dolorosa, Had It Comin's really good as well. We're Long Gone, So Close, Garden of Knives, Mutineering, Guns for Carolina. A lot of good stuff on here. Pretty solid album from start to finish. I feel like I never talk about Matthew Good on my channel, which I always want to, because this is an artist that I don't think he doesn't get hardly any attention here in the States. The only time I've ever heard of him was when YouTube was kind enough to suggest a few songs to me back in 2019, and that's when I began to get into Matthew Good. And of course, I've heard a couple other Canadian channels on YouTube mention him once in a while too, but here in the States you never hear about him, and it's a shame, because he's got some pretty good stuff, and a lot of it happens to be right here on Arrows of Desire, my 6th favorite album of 2013.
I could feel the sun, I could see the sound, I could set myself right here and drown, 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 drown.
In the number 5 spot, I'm going to go with Lightning Bolt from Pearl Jam. This album, I was a big fan of Backspacer. I liked it a lot when it came out. I've only loved it more over time, and Lightning Bolt is kind of the same way. In fact, at first I really only cared for like the first half of this album, but over time I've begun to appreciate pretty much the whole thing. I mean, I still think that the front of this album is loaded with great songs. Getaway is awesome. Mind Your Manners is a banger. My Father's Son is one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs of all time. not necessarily just of this era. That's probably a top 10 Pearl Jam song to me. Sirens is one that I really love. Lightning Bolt is great. And then on the back end of this album, you've got some songs like Swallowed Whole, which I kind of forgot how much I love that one. Let the Records Play is great as well. And Future Days. I really like it when Pearl Jam ends on these kind of softer songs. I think they do it very well. They did it with The End on Backspacer. They did it with Setting Sun off their new album, Dark Matter. They do it here on Lightning Bolt, and of course, like Around the Bend on No Code. So they do plenty of those kind of like softer songs to close albums, and I think it works just about every time. So coming in the number 5 spot, Lightning Bolt from Pearl Jam.
Darkness gathers, sunlight it scatters, my sorrows contagious.
In the number 5 spot, we have the triumphant return of Toad the Wet Sprocket and their first album since 1997's Coil. So, if you were to listen to this album, I don't think you'd be able to tell that Toad the Wet Sprocket hadn't released an album in 15 years, because I think this is pretty amazing. The first song and title track, New Constellation, kind of a brighter song than you would expect from Toad the Wet Sprocket, but amazing nonetheless. California Wasted is awesome and just classic Toad. The Moment I like a lot. I'll Bet on You, Get What You Want. Is There Anyone Out There? Another classic sounding Toad song, and my favorite Toad the Wet Sprocket song of all time. The Eye is really cool too. As is the case with pretty much every Toad the Wet Sprocket album, I love most of it. There's just a couple songs on here that kind of keep it down a little bit for me. I could never get into Golden Age or Enough or Rare Bird. I'm sure there's people out there who do love those songs, and more power to you if you do. I kind of wish I did, but those are 3 songs I just never got that into, and it just seems for me that every Toad album kind of has those 2 or 3 songs I just don't care for. But either way, great return for Toad the Wet Sprocket, and it's my... what number am I on? It's my 4th favorite album of the year.
Been back from the desert for a year or so. I left more in that sand than you'll ever know. Another war was waiting for me when I got back home.
In the number 3 spot, I've got What About Now from Bon Jovi. I just recently picked up this vinyl copy of it. Here is the CD copy that I bought the day it was released. And as is the case with any Bon Jovi album, I anticipated this one, and this really was my album of the year in 2013 itself, because I played it all spring and summer long, as I always do whenever Bon Jovi releases a new album. This would, in hindsight, be an album that is kind of missing Richie Sambora's touch. It should have been maybe no surprise that he left the tour partway through, but this album definitely feels like it's missing Richie Sambora's presence on it, even though he is there. It's the last album that Richie would record with the band. I believe he only has like 5 writing credits on the album, which is unusual because he usually co-writes almost everything with John. So the fact that he only had 5 co-writes on here is maybe a little bit telling, but I do think this is an underappreciated album in the Bon Jovi catalog. It's got a couple of clunkers. Thick as Thieves is terrible. No 2 ways around that one. And songs like Amen, Room at the End of the World, and Because We Can even, I always found were just kind of okay-ish, but not really big standouts to me. But I think he got some nice tunes on here. I'm With You is awesome. Pictures of You, That's What the Water Made Me, What's Left of Me, which is kind of a Someday I'll Be Saturday Night kind of feeling track. I always dug Army of One. The album closer, The Fighter, is awesome as well. And on the CD here, you got some bonus tracks, 2 of which I really, really love, with These Two Hands and Into the Echo. And it's a shame that those 2 were not on the official album, especially considering that Thick of Thieves did make it, which is almost criminal. But Into the Echo may in fact be my favorite song on the whole thing. I love that track. Album art is pretty sweet too. It's got a lot going on here. Very, very colorful. I like the blues and the golds, because after this, Bon Jovi would go pretty hard on the black and white covers. But that aside, What About Now has fallen to my 3rd favorite album of the year, because there are 2 that have just kind of surpassed it. But What About Now, kind of an underappreciated record in the Bon Jovi catalog, my 3rd favorite from 2013.
From my hometown, I let out to save my skin and shed some down.
In the number 2 spot, and I was all set to actually give this one the number 1 spot, but I played this and my number 1 back-to-back yesterday and called a bit of an audible here. But I'm going to go with The Devil Put Dinosaurs here from Alice in Chains. band's 5th studio album, if you're not counting the EPs, and their 2nd without Lane Staley. And in my opinion, it is the best album post Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. Some really killer songs on here: Hollow, Pretty Done, Stone, Voices, which I love. But my 2 favorite songs are later on the album, with Breath on a Window and Scalpel, which I think is just an incredible track. But I don't think there's anything bad on here. Lab Monkey, Low Ceiling, Phantom Limb. I think the one song that maybe I'm not crazy about is the title track, but even that is a decent enough song in of itself and doesn't really ruin the album in any way for me. So Devil Put Dinosaurs here by Alice in Chains is going to wind up in the number 2 spot. And coming in the number 1 spot, I've got Now What from Deep Purple, the band's 19th studio album, and just another reason why I really love the Steve Morse era of this band, with Perpendicular being my favorite Deep Purple album, and this is a top 3 probably favorite Deep Purple album of mine. I really love this one. It's a bit progressive, which I think is awesome, but there's just a boatload of great songs on this album. I love the way it starts with a simple song, and a simple song starts off kind of slower and then really kicks in, and it's just like, hell yeah when it does. Weirdest In, Out of Hand, Hell to Pay is awesome, Bodyline's okay. I don't really like Blood from a Stone. That's the one hiccup on this album to me. I'm not a fan of that one at all. But Above and Beyond and Uncommon Man, those 2 songs, they just have these organ riffs that are like, I grew up watching, this is a little off topic here, but I grew up watching Diamond P Sports, NHRA drag racing coverage and review tapes and whatnot, and the songs that they would use for the highlights on those tapes and on those coverages, Above and Beyond and Uncommon Man, sound like they could have been in there. Like, I wish Diamond P was still around to cover drag racing, because these 2 songs could be used there. I mean, Uncommon Man makes me feel like my favorite driver just won the big race. This is what it sounds like to me. Can't you just totally picture that? And then, of course, it doesn't end there. We've got a press, though, if that's how you pronounce it, I don't remember. All the Time in the World is great as well. Vincent Price, absolute heavy banging tracker at the end. And the vinyl one I got here has got a bonus track, It'll Be Me. Pretty cool song. I like it better than Blood from a Stone, but this one just kind of like blows me away every time I listen to it. Was not expecting an album this deep into this great band's career to grab me the way this one has, but over the past year or 2 that I've had this, or that I've been listening to this, and it's just really shot to the top for me. I think this is just a fantastic Deep Purple album. So there you go. You have my favorite albums of the year 2013. I think one of the better, strongest years of the decade in my opinion. Let me know in the comments below your 10 favorite albums from 2013, and if you like this kind of content, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this in the future, and I'll catch you next time.